Dear students, please do hurry and join the live class so that we can start our live session. Please do hurry and join the live class so that we can start our live session. And you can subscribe our YouTube channel, Edwins, where you can get the recorded live classes as well as the recorded classes and the live classes. And also an important announcement for the board students. They can purchase our premium version by visiting our website edwins.in, where the premium version is available at a very low cost, where you can get the unlimited study material, mock test series and recorded classes. So please do visit and purchase our premium version. Please do hurry and join the live class so that we can start our live session. A very good evening to all of you and welcome to the another live class of Edwins. In previous live class, we have discussed about the reproduction part 1, where we have studied the type of reproduction and especially the first type, that is the asexual reproduction. In previous class, we have discussed that type of reproduction. There are two types of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, the asexual reproduction, which is actually the not involvement of gamete, and in sexual reproduction, where the involvement of gamete. Okay, so these are the two types of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual. The asexual reproduction is further divided into fission, fragmentation, regeneration, vegetative propagation, etc. Today we will discuss about the sexual reproduction in plant. So today we study the sexual part or reproductive part of a plant. We know the plant have two parts, that is one is vegetative and another one is reproductive. The vegetative part is the stem, root, leaf. In previous class we have discussed those parts are able to produce a new offspring or new plant by vegetative propagation. Okay, but they have a reproductive part. What are the reproductive parts? Number one is of course flower, and number two is the fruit. Today we will discuss about the reproductive part, that is flower. In plants, the flower parts are divided into actually 4 roles, that is 4 roles. Number one is the calyx. Okay, so what is calyx? We know that in budding condition, the flower, when it is bud, it is covered with a green part, which is known as sepal. Now, what is sepal and what is calyx? Sepal, if I cut the sepal, it will look like this. Okay, and each of these fragment are like this. Each of these fragments are known as sepal. And these sepals are collectively called the calyx. Sepals are collectively called calyx. So what is calyx and what is sepal? Sepal are the single part of the calyx. So we know that is sepal. Why? Because this is in singular, and these sepals are collectively, when they are fused together or in plural form, this is known as calyx. So this is the sepal. Next, in many plants, if this is a China rose or hibiscus, that is China rose. In China rose, there have few calyx-like structure outside the sepal, which are known as apicalyx. Okay, so the first role is the sepal or calyx, and the calyx are sometimes covered or membrane with some calyx-like or sepal-like structure, which is known as apicalyx. The first role is the calyx. Next, the second one. Second one is the corolla. Second one is the corolla. So what is corolla? Corolla is the colorful part of the flower, and the singular part of the corolla is known as petal. Okay, so these petals are collectively called corolla. Okay, hope you understand the difference between corolla and petals. Petal are the singular or single part of the corolla. Corolla are the plural part. Okay, so the second role is the petal or corolla. Next, the third part, that is called androecium. The third part, which is called androecium, which is also known as stamen. Okay, this is actually the male reproductive part of the flower. What? This is called stamen. And this stamen has two parts. That is, if the stamen is look like this thread-like structure is known as filament. Okay, and the head structure or glandular structure is known as anther. Okay, so the male reproductive part actually have two parts. That is, number one is filament, which is the thread or stick-like structure, and the head or glandular structure, which is known as anther. These anther contain pollen grains. Okay, so this is the male reproductive part. Next one is the female reproductive part or the gynosium. The fourth, that is gynosium, which is also known as pistil. Okay, this is the female reproductive part. And this gynosium, where this is the anther and this is filament. Okay, and this is the female reproductive part, that is okay. And this female reproductive part actually divided into three parts. Number one, that is this part. This part is known as stigma. Okay. Second, the neck-like structure or tube-like structure is known as style. And the base or the blended structure is known as ovary. Okay. So these are the three parts of the female reproductive system, that is gynosium or pistil. And it is divided into three parts, that is stigma, the head part, the style, the neck or the tube-like part, and the ovary, the base part. Okay. So what are the functions of these roles? The function, first one is the calyx. The first one is the calyx, which is the outermost layer or outermost role. So first function is to protect the inner parts. What are the inner parts? That is corolla, androsium and gynosium. Second function, if normally the sepals are green in color, so of course they act like a leaf. And what is the function of leaf? Of course, photosynthesis. Help in photosynthesis. Okay, number two. Number three, if any case the calyx or the sepals are colorful, then it will attract the insect for pollination. What is the example of the colorful calyx? One is common example, that is bougainvillea. The calyx of the bougainvillea is colorful, which attract the insects. So this is the function of calyx. Next, the corolla. Of course, I have already told this is the colorful part. So its function is actually to attract the insect. Okay, to attract the insects. And these corolla are actually, in case of China rose, which we are studying, that is, they are actually this like structure. At the base, this is the base part and this is the upper part. At the base, they are narrower. Okay, and the upper part, which is broad. Okay, so this is the structure of the corolla and this is the function. The next one is the androsium or the male reproductive part. Of course, the male reproductive part, what is the function? To produce male gamete. That is, the male reproductive part produce male gamete and help in fertilization. So here we have mentioned two terms, that is pollination and fertilization, which we'll discuss by step in this class. So help in fertilization. And the female reproductive part, that is pistil, also produce female gamete that is ovum, and produce help in food production. Okay, so these are the functions of the 4 roles of a flower. Based on the presence of the androecium and gynoecium, or stamen and pistil, the flowers are divided into 2 types, that is unisexual flower and bisexual flower. So what is unisexual flower? From the name, that is unisexual flower, of course uni mean single. That is, flowers are divided into 2 types based on what? Based on presence of male and female reproductive parts. Okay, what are they? Number 1 is the unisexual and bisexual. From the name we can understand, uni mean single, that is single. So in this type of flower, either male or the female gamete may be present, that is either male or female gamete or female reproductive part may be present. But in case of bisexual, bi mean 2, that is both male and female gamete, female reproductive part are present. So this is the basic type of flowers, that is unisexual and bisexual. So the question may be present in your exam, that is very important, this diagram. Either it is present to draw a diagram of a bisexual flower and label its different parts. 1. Number 2, it may be present that the figure may be present and you have to label the different parts of the flower. So a quick revision, that is first one, that is sepal, okay, which is the outermost or the first roll of the flower, that is sepal. Number 2, that is the petals, which is collectively called the corolla. And the number 3, that is the male reproductive part or the stamen or androecium, which is further divided into 2 parts, that is filament and anther. And number 4, that is the female reproductive part, which is further divided into, or which have the 3 parts. Number 1 is the stigma, number 2 is the style, and number 3 is the ovary. Okay, so these are the three parts. These are the parts of the plant or a flower. Next, this part also need to be know, because if you have to be present as a draw a flower or bisexual flower and label the following parts, that is thalamus. What is thalamus? Thalamus is the part of the base of the flower. What it means? It means the four roles are situated on the thalamus. Thalamus is the base of a flower, and below the thalamus, this part is called stalk. Which is connect to the stem and flower. So stalk actually build the connection between the stem or the branch of the plant and flower, and the thalamus actually hold the whole flower rolls. Hope this is clear to you. So this is the part of the flower. If you have any question, you may ask in our comment section, then I will leave to the next part. Okay, so coming to the next part, the structure of flower is understand all of you. Next, we will study the pollination and fertilization. Next, we will study the pollination. So what is pollination? There have a misconception between pollination and fertilization. So clear your concept first. Pollination is the process of transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. That is, we know that female reproductive part, that is the stamen, which have two parts. One is filament, another one is anther, and these anthers are contain, that is anther, and these anthers are contain pollen grains. Okay, these pollen grains are transferred to the female reproductive part, where? To the stigma. The transfer process of the pollen grains is known as pollination. Okay, so what is pollination? The process of transfer of pollen grains to the stigma from the anther. This part is very much important because this is there have a misconception that pollination mean the fertilization. No, pollination is the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Okay, so based on the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, the pollination process is divided into two categories. What are they? They are, number one, self-pollination, and number two is the cross-pollination. Okay, so from the name, we can understand that what is self-pollination? Self-pollination means it is happened without the help of any agent. It is happened by self, and this self-pollination is also divided into two categories. One is autogamy and another one is geitonogamy. What is autogamy and what is geitonogamy? Okay, let's understand this concept. If this is a plant and this is the flower, okay, and this is the bisexual flower. What it means? Means it have both male and female reproductive part, that is present androecium as well as the gynoecium. So this part, the pollen grains are dropped to the stigma of the flower. The pollen grains are dropped into the stigma solely in the same flower. This process is known as autogamy. That it means the stigma, this is the stigma and this is the pollen grain, and this is the flower. Okay, these are the anther, and this transfer of the pollens to the stigma of the same flower. The transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of same flower. Okay, this is called autogamy. But what is geitonogamy? Geitonogamy is the process, that is this is one plant and it have two flowers. Number one, and like here also a flower. Okay, so the transfer of the pollen grain from the one flower to the another flower of the same plant, that is the transfer of pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of another flower of same plant. That is, what is the difference between autogamy and geitonogamy? That is transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, but they are the another flower of the same plant. That is, both are happening in the same plant, but in case of autogamy this is in the same flower, but in case of geitonogamy this is occurs in the both different flower. This is the concept of self pollination, and these are the types of the self pollination, that is autogamy and geitonogamy. Next one is the cross pollination. The cross pollination is the process of transfer of the pollen grains from the one flower of a one plant to the flower of the another plant, but in same species. So what is the cross pollination? Cross pollination is the process, that is transfer of pollen grains to a stigma of a flower from the anther of different flower of different plant, but in same species. Okay, so if we took the differences between self pollination and cross pollination, that is, number one is in case of autogamy it is occurs in the same flower. Clear? In geitonogamy this is occurs in the different flower but in same plant. In case of cross pollination this is occurs between the different flower as well as different plants. Clear? This concept is clear, I hope. That is the process of pollination. So in cross pollination, there for the transfer of the pollen grains it needs some agents who will carry the pollen grains from one flower to another. They called the agents. What are the agents? Agents are the either it may be living or it may be non-living. Those who carry the pollen grains from the one flower and get reached to the another flower. These are called agents. So what are the example? Like insects, air, water. These are the agents help in cross pollination. Insect, the major insect on earth who help in the pollination, that is bee. Okay, this is the self pollination and cross pollination and the concept of the whole pollination in plant. Okay. If you have any doubt, you may ask in our comment section. So next we will study that the fertilization. The pollen grains, now through the pollination, the pollen grains get reach into the stigma of the flower. Now what happens? This is the process that is called pollination, fertilization. So next we will study the fertilization. But before going to the fertilization, we have to know at least the minimum structure of a ovary in case of plant. So we know, I have already drawn in the figure of the flower. This needs to be large. Okay. This is a structure of female reproductive part. We have already learned, that is, this is called stigma, this is called style, and this is the ovary. And the ovule or female gamete contain inside the ovary. I have drawn that many nucleatic structure inside this. So what are they? Number one, this is called antipodal cell. Okay, these are chromosome number is N. In the center, these are the polar nuclei. These are chromosome number is 2N. And here we can observe, that is one in red in color, and both side of this cell have two cells. These are called synergids. And this red color cell is actually the ovum. So ovum is surrounded by two cells which are called synergids. Okay, so this is a basic structure of a ovary. Now the pollen grains dropped on a stigma. Okay, so the first function will be to form the pollen tube, that is and this is the one type of movement in plant we have already discussed in the first chapter, that is, this is called what? Chemotactic movement. The movement of the male gamete towards the female gamete with the help of a chemical sense, that is, what is the chemical? That is boron. Okay, this is a chemotactic movement. So it will form the pollen tube and get rich into the egg cell. Okay, and this pollen tube, where the pollen tube entered inside the ovule, this is known as micropyle, the pore. Okay, micropyle is the opening where the pollen tube entered. Okay, this is called micropyle. But this way, these pollen grains contain the male reproductive cell, which is divided into two nucleus or two nuclei. In plural, this is called nuclei. So two nuclei, and those two nuclei get rich into the ovule. But the one nuclei is only able to fertilize the ovum. Then what about the other one? The other one, the first step, it will fuse with the ovum and form the zygote. Okay, clear? This is first step, of course, and this process is called fertilization. So what is fertilization? Fertilization is the process of fusing male gamete with the female gamete. That is the process of fusion of male and female gamete. Clear? So how it is differ from the pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, but the fertilization is the process of the fusion of male and female gametes. Clear? Next, that is called fertilization. Next, what about the other cell? There have two nuclei. What about the other nucleus? This other nucleus is get fused with the polar nuclei and form a triploid nucleus. Okay, and this triploid nucleus is further formed the endosperm. Which will provide nutrition to the embryo. Of course, from the fertilization, that zygote will form. This zygote is developed into an embryo. So in case of dormant state, what is the dormancy? Dormancy is actually the resting phase of the seed, and this resting phase, the embryo gets nutrition from the endosperm of the seed or the fruit. This is called the double fertilization. Why? Because one fertilization occurs there and form the zygote, and in next step the next fertilization occurs and form the endosperm. That's why this is called double fertilization. Okay, why this is called double fertilization? Hope this is clear. And that's why this is called double fertilization. And after fertilization, the ovary get converted into fruit. and the ovule get converted into seed. Clear? So this is the process of fertilization. This is the double fertilization process. Why it is called double fertilization process? What is the endosperm? How the fertilization process is occurs? What is the importance of the pollen tube? These questions may be presented in your exam. So these are the all about the reproduction in flowering plants Okay, hope you understand those topics, that is what is the structure of the flower of a bisexual flower and the pollination process and its types, and also the fertilization process and why it is important and different parts of the fertilization. So that's all for the today's video. If you like to get more such informative video, you may subscribe our YouTube channel Edwin's. Also follow our Facebook page Edwin's, and if you like to get more such informative video as well as try to build your excellence in your exam, you may visit our website edwins.in, where you can get mock test series and study materials as well as recorded classes as well as the live classes at a very low cost. So please do visit right now and purchase our premium version. Thank you.